The British royal family is synonymous with tradition, protocol, and centuries of carefully documented lineage. Every branch of the family tree has been studied, catalogued, and preserved. But in 2013, a DNA test quietly upended 200 years of accepted history. The results revealed that Prince William, the future King of England, carries a genetic marker found almost exclusively on the Indian subcontinent, a marker so rare that only 14 other people in global databases have ever been recorded with it. 13 of them were Indian, 1 was Nepalese. The connection traced back 8 generations through Princess Diana to a woman living in colonial India, whose identity had been deliberately erased from the family record. Her name was Eliza Kewark, and for 2 centuries, the family made sure nobody knew who she really was. If you're fascinated by how DNA rewrites the stories we think we know, subscribe now, because this channel uncovers the genetic secrets behind history's most famous figures every single week. To understand how Indian DNA ended up in the British royal family, you have to go back to the early 1800s and a busy port city called Surat in the western Indian state of Gujarat. In 1809, a 21-year-old Scotsman named Theodore Forbes arrived there looking to make his fortune. Forbes was the youngest son of a landowning family in Aberdeenshire. He knew he would never inherit the family estate, so he joined the East India Company and sailed for India. In Surat, Forbes employed a local woman named Eliza Kewark as his housekeeper. What began as a domestic arrangement quickly became something deeper. In his private diary, Forbes described Eliza as the very pattern of what a wife ought to be. By 1812, they had a daughter named Catherine, known as Kitty. A son, Alexander, followed shortly after. But Forbes never formally married Eliza. Whether it was colonial pressure, career ambition, or the growing racism of the era, the relationship stayed unofficial. When Forbes accepted a prestigious partnership in Bombay, he made a choice that would define Eliza's life. He moved to the new city alone, leaving Eliza and their children behind in Surat. What followed were years of heartbreaking letters. Eliza dictated messages to a Parsi scribe in broken English, pleading to see Theodore and their daughter. One of her letters read, "My good sir, I pray you let me know. By your leave, I will bring my child to give in your hand by myself." Eventually, Eliza agreed to send 6-year-old Kitty to Theodore's ancestral home in Aberdeenshire, Scotland. The little girl sailed across the world. She never saw her mother again. When Theodore Forbes died at sea in 1820, his will referred to Eliza merely as his housekeeper and Kitty as his reputed natural daughter. The man who had called her the very pattern of a wife erased her from his official legacy with a stroke of a pen. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more stories where DNA exposes the truths that history tried to bury. But the erasure did not stop with Theodore's will. Once Kitty arrived in Scotland, the family faced a problem far more dangerous than illegitimacy. In 19th century Britain, being born outside marriage carried serious social consequences. But being part Indian was worse. The aristocracy called it coloured blood, and it could permanently disqualify a family from respectable society. So the family rewrote the story. Eliza Kewark became Armenian. She was referred to as Mrs. Forbesian, a surname suffix common in Armenian culture, making the cover story feel authentic. Armenia, home to the world's oldest Christian community, was far more acceptable to British high society than India. Letters found decades later at the Forbes family estate at Boindley were written in a non-European script. The family used this to support the Armenian narrative, even though some of Eliza's earlier letters had actually been written in Gujarati. The deception worked perfectly. Kitty married well into the prosperous Crombie family. Her descendants climbed through British aristocracy generation after generation. Nobody questioned the bloodline. Not when Kitty's great-great-granddaughter Ruth Fermoy became a lady-in-waiting to the Queen Mother. Not when Ruth's daughter Frances married Earl Spencer. And not even when Frances's daughter, Lady Diana Spencer, walked down the aisle of St. Paul's Cathedral in 1981 to marry Prince Charles in front of 750 million television viewers. For almost 200 years, the Indian woman from Surat remained invisible in the most scrutinized family tree on Earth. Then came the DNA. In 2013, Dr. Jim Wilson, a genetics expert at the University of Edinburgh and chief scientist at the ancestry testing company Britain's DNA, led a study that would tear a hole through 2 centuries of careful deception. The team tested saliva samples from 2 of Princess Diana's matrilineal cousins, women who shared the same unbroken maternal line stretching back to Eliza Kewark. The tool was mitochondrial DNA, a small piece of genetic code passed only from mother to child, unchanged through generations. Unlike the DNA in most of our cells, mitochondrial DNA does not recombine with the father's genes. It acts as a direct biological timestamp, linking descendants to their maternal ancestors across centuries. When the results came back, both cousins carried the same mitochondrial signature. It belonged to haplogroup R30b, a genetic marker found almost entirely in South Asia. Out of over 65,000 individuals in global comparison databases, only 14 other carriers of R30b had ever been recorded. 13 were Indian, 1 was Nepalese. The related branches, R30a and the broader R30 group, were also exclusively South Asian. R30b is rare even within India itself, where roughly 0.3% of the population carries it, and Eliza Kewark's specific sequence within R30b was rarer still. An exact match to her lineage has never been found in any database anywhere in the world. Dr. Wilson called the evidence for Prince William's Indian roots unassailable. But the DNA also drew a clear boundary around what science can and cannot reveal. Mitochondrial DNA traces only the maternal line. It confirmed that Eliza's mother was Indian, but it could say nothing about her father. Eliza's surname, Kewark, closely resembles the Armenian name Kevork. Letters she wrote contained Armenian script. Her brother-in-law was Aratun Baldassier, a man with clear Armenian heritage. It is entirely possible that Eliza's father, Jacob Kevork, was of Armenian descent, making her both Armenian and Indian. That question remains open, and there is another layer the DNA cannot resolve. Prince William and Prince Harry both carry Eliza's mitochondrial marker. But because mitochondrial DNA passes only through mothers, neither prince can pass this Indian genetic signature to their own children. The marker that survived 8 generations through an unbroken line of daughters will not continue through the male line. It reached the threshold of the British throne and stopped. Today, the story of Eliza Kewark is more than a footnote in royal genealogy. It is a reminder that identity is never as simple as a family tree suggests. A woman from Surat, erased from the record and disguised as Armenian for 200 years, left a genetic fingerprint so distinct that modern science could identify it centuries later. The family that hid her origins now carries the proof in their cells. If this story changed the way you think about ancestry and hidden history, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I cover the DNA secrets behind the world's most famous bloodlines, and there are stories coming that you will not want to miss. As science continues to unlock the code written in our genes, the old walls between nations and bloodlines keep falling. Sometimes the truth we inherit is stranger and more powerful than anything we were ever told.